Okay, hey guys. I want to continue on the content generator kind of concept that we talked about last time, and I want to start with a really simple quote because it gives us enough to sort of break things down and give you a really quick example about how you can take even a really simple quote like this and unpack it into something that could give you potentially hours worth of content. And if you're looking for something that will give structure to an idea that you have, a concept that you have, or just some kind of like nebulous direction you want to go, if you want to speak to if you have to speak to a group, or you want to speak to a group, something like this can give you really all the structure that you need, and then you can hang your content on that structure according to whatever your audience needs and whatever you want to communicate to them. And the great thing about using literature, really any kind of written content, pre-existing content, to do this is that you have the benefit of an author who has more than likely poured tons of time and consideration and maybe even blood, sweat, and tears into writing something or crafting something out of words that condenses a whole lot of ideas into a very compact structure. And then the reverse is true as well. If you can unpack that structure, you can start to capitalize on all of the thought and all of the ideas, all the concepts, all the stuff that author packed into that very condensed format, and use it as a structure then for whatever you want to communicate. And again, the idea when you're speaking is never just to give information. That's what you go to college for, and you listen through dry lectures and usually fall asleep. And like me, if you're like me in art history class, you sometimes snore. So if you don't want your audience to be doing that, then simple thing is change your information to transformation. Give it a structure and a vector, or a direction that it can follow, and then you start to get some movement. You get more interest, you get more participation, more interest, and more attention from your audience, and it builds energy into what you're saying. So really quickly, I just wanted to show you how I break this down, because it's so simple. This is a great place to start. The quote is, "I will do nothing because of public opinion, comma, but everything because of conscience." So a couple of things to note. First is, I will do nothing because of public opinion. It's implied that this action, will do, is stuck in here too. So you could easily say, I will do nothing because of public opinion, but I will do everything because of conscience. So let's just assume that right now and say, okay, number one, the first thing I want to do is I want to put a break here between I will do nothing. This is the core initiating statement. It kind of starts the momentum into this really quick quote. And we're going to put a break here. Because of public opinion is the next logical place to go. Now, because frames it up, it says this is why. Of, you got a preposition. So normally, and we'll see this in some of the other ones we'll go into, of is a great place to break as well. But because this is such a tight and small phrase, we're just going to keep this together. But I will do everything because of conscience. So but is kind of the big but here. We want to put it, this is going to be a major break in the idea, everything, and then the same phrase here, because of. So you have because of, this is why, because of public opinion, because of conscience. So we're going to break this into 4 different lines. And what I always do, what I'll do is I'll put up just a blank document, Word doc, and a Google Doc up online so you can download it for yourself. But what I always do is I turn the page horizontal, because then you have a lot more real estate to do work in. I'm pretty severely ADD, so my mind goes all the different places. This helps me keep my thoughts unstructured and just put them down on paper, and then I can go back through and actually figure out what pieces I want to use when I'm putting it into a talk or putting it into a presentation. And right now, my idea is all I want to do is see if I can pull as much content and just ideas, concepts, connections, all those types of things out of this phrase right now. I'm not even going to worry about how I'm going to structure my talk. All I want to do is just kind of unpack all this and connect it to whatever is in my heart. Remember what we talked about last time. Proverbs chapter 20, verse 5 says, King Solomon said that wisdom or counsel in the heart of a man or a woman is like deep water, or it's like a deep well. And a man or a woman of understanding will draw it out. And what it means is, really, you've got this incredible reservoir of information and ideas inside of you. Your passions, your experiences, your education, your failures, your wins, all of those things contribute to this huge reservoir of content that's just laying there like this giant body of water. Your challenge every time you have to get up and speak is to pull out those components of that reservoir and structure them in a way that they connect and transform the audience. So again, we're going to break this into 4 lines. And to loop back to what I started talking about with Word, what I usually do is I'll just set tabs about every 1/4 inch or every 3/8 of an inch, however you want to do that. So if you are looking on a Word doc, you'll set your tabs like this across the top. And all it does, when you do that for the entire, set that for the entire paragraph or content, then it gives you a really easy structure that you just hit return and then tab, return, tab, 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 return, tab, 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 tab. And it gives you a preset kind of grid work that you can break things out. And if you remember, which one was it? Like the Frank Herbert one, you can see how I just used tabs there. And the Neruda quote, you can do something like that. And the great thing about this is it gives you a visual way to see which parts of this content are nested under which major structure points within the content. See, like Pablo Neruda, if you just read it, you may not notice that he says, I love you, I love you, I love you 3 times. I love you without, I love you simply, and I love you in this way. And it gives you a visual way of seeing how he structured the language the same way that Seneca did. And then you can capitalize that and just steal it and run with it for your own talk. And nobody has to know where it comes from because you're adding your content to it, but it gives you a framework that you don't have to invent. But someone who spent hours, probably weeks, working on a sonnet like this, he did all the heavy lifting, he did all the thinking and structuring. You're just capitalizing on his work and then plugging in your content, drawing from your reservoir to create the talk, whether it's 10 minutes or 10 days, to build that content. So with Seneca, here's how I broke it down. And then once you put that in Word and you tab it, and I usually add like at least double space it because it gives me ways that, or it gives me space where I can circle things and I can come back around. Then you've got a framework where you can say, okay, I will do goes here. You can start to see things like he's got 2 completely polar opposites here. I will do nothing. That's an absolute. And I will do everything. All right away, you've got an easy way to break down your content. Nothing or everything. All or nothing. Nothing or all. Because of public opinion, if this is black and this is white, this is left, this is right, this is up, this is down, however you want to phrase it, this is a polar end, this is another polar end. That also means that this supporting phrase, because of public opinion, this is equally as polar as because of conscience. So nothing is tied to public opinion, everything is tied to conscience. The cool thing about this is now you've got 2 very, very distinct ways of looking at what you want to convey to your audience. And instead of having 3 points, you can just walk away with 2, wrap it up at the end, and you've got 2 really, really clear frameworks to go on. So something that you could take and run with on this if you're talking about business. What's public opinion? Well, if you go on YouTube or you go on Instagram and you listen to all the pundits and all the speakers and everybody that's the coaching and giving you all this content, you're going to need to start to filter that somehow. How do you filter it? Well, number 1, look at public opinion. Is it something that someone who's accomplished is talking about, or is it just your barber, or is it your hairstylist, or whoever's giving you? You can look at, tell them my hands. I never get a mani-pedi, but your manicurist. Or is it something that's coming from conscience? Questions you can ask your audience are, where does public opinion come from? How do you differentiate between good public opinion and bad public opinion? What's opinion, what's true wisdom? How do you create a filter, and how do you know how do you determine the difference between those two things? Because if this is that important that you don't want to do anything based on this, then you need to dial it in and figure out, where is that coming from? How do I use that? And if this is as bad as Seneca says it is, so that he says, I'm not going to do anything because of public opinion, then you really need to be able to know what it looks like so you can avoid it at all costs. But on the flip side, how do you know what your conscience really is? Because it kind of begs the question. If your conscience is what you're thinking, how much of that is influenced by public opinion? Where does that come from? How does it filter into your thinking? As you're unpacking all of this, you can start to map it out on this page, which we'll do in the next video, and kind of get everything out on the table. It's just like a puzzle, like a jigsaw puzzle. I don't know if you've ever done that. We used to do those as a family every New Year's, and we'd get like a 2,000 piece puzzle. And the start was always the same. You get the box, you dump it out on a big table, you turn all the pieces over, and then you start to kind of assess, what do I have to work with? First thing you do is you look for the edges, then you look for the major color blocks, you look for the things that are kind of easy to identify, you work on those islands, you piece it all together, and then you fill in the gaps. It's the same thing here. This is your box to dump your puzzle out from, and this is your table. So that's it for today.